David Carlson had been walking the corridors of the alien ship for hours. Every step felt heavier than the last. His boots echoed against the metal floor, and the lights above flickered now and then, throwing strange shadows across the walls. The air smelled faintly metallic and dusty, and he could feel the vibration of the ship under his feet. It was a quiet kind of exhaustion, the kind that came after days without proper rest or food, after endless repairs that never seemed to go right. He paused by a console that was still humming faintly and leaned against it. Sweat ran down his forehead, and he wiped it away with the back of his hand. He had never felt so alone. The human crew he had come with had left days ago to explore another section of the ship, and he had stayed behind, hoping to fix a critical system before it was too late. But no matter how much he tried, the circuits refused to cooperate. He had checked and rechecked every panel, every wire, every signal. Nothing worked. David let out a deep sigh and slumped to the floor. His back pressed against the cold metal wall, and he closed his eyes for a moment. He had been so sure that his training and experience would be enough. After all, he had worked on some of the most complex spacecraft in the human fleet. Yet here, in the middle of this alien ship, he felt powerless. He was just one man, exhausted and small, surrounded by technology he could barely understand. A soft sound made him open his eyes. At first, he thought it was the ship settling, a faint creak in the metal. But then he heard it again, a small, clear voice. "You look exhausted, sir." David's eyes snapped open fully. He scanned the corridor, expecting to see another human. There was no one. Then, he saw her. She was small, no taller than 3 feet, with silver hair that shimmered faintly in the flickering light. Her eyes were large and green, glowing softly, and she stared at him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. She was unlike any alien he had ever seen in books or reports, delicate, almost childlike. Yet there was something in her gaze that made him pause. Something older, wiser, and quietly strong. I'm sorry," David said, his voice rough and tired. He rubbed his eyes, wondering if he was imagining it. "You are tired," the little girl said again, tilting her head slightly. "I can feel it. You need rest." David swallowed hard. He had been warned about alien life forms, about creatures that were unpredictable or dangerous. But this one, she wasn't threatening. She spoke gently, with a soft rhythm that seemed to calm him. He found himself staring at her, unsure what to say. I guess I am," he admitted finally. "It's been a long day. Actually, a long week. Deventry, a long week." She nodded as if she understood exactly what he meant. "You carry too much. It is heavy." David couldn't help a small laugh, even though his throat felt dry. "Yeah, that sounds about right." He glanced down at his hands, smeared with grime and scratches from working on the ship. "I don't even know if I'm doing this right anymore." 9. The little alien took a cautious step closer, her feet making no sound against the metal. "You are doing what you can," she said. "Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes more is not needed." David blinked. The words were simple, but they carried a weight he hadn't expected. He had spent days beating himself up, thinking he was failing, thinking that maybe humans weren't clever enough to fix something like this. And yet here was this tiny being, barely a foot tall, telling him he was enough. You really mean that?" he asked softly. "I do," she said. Her voice was calm, certain, like it had been spoken 1,000 times before. "You have strength, even when you do not see it. You need only remember." David leaned back and let out a long breath. He had spent so long thinking he had to handle everything alone, and maybe that had been the problem. Maybe he had forgotten that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. "What's your name?" he asked after a moment. "I am Leary," she said, and there was a slight tilt of her head, like a question. "What is your name?" "David," he said. David Carlson. He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling embarrassed to be talking to someone so small, yet feeling safe. Strange, he thought. How could a creature so small make him feel less alone than anyone else had in weeks? You carry much, David Carlson, she said. You carry your work, your worries, your fear. It is heavy. David laughed quietly, shaking his head. You sound like a counselor. Or a mother. Leary's lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. Perhaps I am both, she said simply. He shook his head, unsure if he was dreaming. Then, a sudden noise broke his thoughts, a faint pop, like a spark from one of the consoles. David's heart jumped. He scrambled to his feet and checked the panels, expecting another malfunction. But the systems seemed stable for now. You see? Leary said softly, stepping closer again. It is not as broken as you fear. You only need a guide, not perfection. David stared at her. He had been alone for so long that even the idea of a guide felt foreign. But something about Leary's presence. It sparked a small flame in him. A part of him that thought maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely useless here. You want to help me? He asked cautiously. Even though I don't even know what you are, exactly. I want to help you. Leary said simply. It is what I do. And I have been waiting for someone like you. And David frowned, confused. Waiting for someone like me? She nodded, her eyes serious. Yes. Someone who can listen. Someone who can think. Someone who is brave in ways even he does not understand. David shook his head again, smiling faintly, despite his exhaustion. Well, I don't feel brave. Then perhaps it is not yet your turn, Leary said, almost to herself. Then she looked up at him with those green eyes. But today you may begin. David felt a strange warmth spread through him. He had been so focused on machines, wires, and failures that he hadn't realized how tired his mind had been, how his spirit had been dimmed. And now, here was a small alien girl, telling him that he could start again, that he could still make a difference. Okay, he said finally. Maybe we can do this together. Leary's eyes brightened slightly. Yes, she said. Together. You show the way, and I will guide you. You are not alone. For the first time in days, David felt a spark of hope. He looked around the ship again. At the panels, the wires, the alien technology that had seemed so impossible before. And now, it seemed possible. Maybe not easy. All right, he said, rolling up his sleeves despite the grime and cuts on his arms. Let's get to work. Leary hopped lightly onto the console next to him, her small hands hovering over the controls. I will show you what I know, she said. And you will teach me what you know too. Together, we will fix this ship. David couldn't help but smile. I never thought I'd take advice from someone like you, he said. And I never thought I would meet someone like you, Leary replied. There was a quiet moment as they looked at each other. The air in the corridor no longer felt heavy. The flickering lights didn't seem so frightening. For the first time in a long time, David felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Possibility. And deep down, he had a feeling that meeting Leary was not just a chance encounter. Somehow, this small alien girl was going to change his life in ways he could not yet imagine. Together, they began working on the console, side by side. David showed her the basic systems he understood, explaining slowly so she could follow. Leary watched carefully, then corrected his hand when he made a small mistake, her small fingers precise and careful. See? She said softly. Mistakes are not the end. They are lessons. David nodded, feeling an unexpected surge of respect for her. She was tiny. Yes, but there was wisdom in her eyes. A sharpness that reminded him why humans survived in a galaxy filled with danger. Even the smallest being could carry incredible knowledge and power. Hours passed, though David did not feel the exhaustion as sharply anymore. Leary kept him focused, guiding him with patience he had almost forgotten existed. For the first time in days, he felt capable again. He felt human, strong in ways that mattered, and as he worked, he realized something else. He was not just fixing a ship, he was beginning to understand something much bigger. That sometimes, strength came not from machines, not from experience, not even from skill, but from connection, from trust, from the simple presence of someone who believed in you, even when you did not believe in yourself. David looked at Leary, her small form perched on the console, and for the first time, he dared to hope. David Carlson worked alongside Leary, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and curiosity. The alien girl seemed almost like a shadow, moving quickly and silently around the console. Every time he thought he had figured something out, she would tilt her head, point at a wire, or press a small button he had ignored, and the console would light up with life. It amazed him. For a being so small, so fragile in appearance, she carried knowledge he could not even imagine. "I don't understand how you know all this," David said, wiping sweat from his forehead. He leaned on the console, watching Leary's small hands move over the controls. It's like you've done this 1,000 times." Leary looked up at him, her green eyes glowing softly. "I have seen many ships like this. But it is not just knowledge. It is understanding. You see the parts. I see the whole." David shook his head slowly. "I've never met anyone like you. And you will never meet anyone like me again," she said simply, almost as if it were a promise. He frowned at that, unsure how to take it. But before he could ask, a soft alarm sounded from the main console. David jumped, his hands flying to the controls. The display showed a sudden drop in energy output from the ship's engine. "What happened?" he asked, alarm rising in his chest. Leary's small face remained calm. "A section of the power grid is damaged. It is minor, but it will stop the repairs if we do not fix it soon." David took a deep breath and leaned over the console. "All right. Let's do this together." Leary nodded and hopped down to the floor, pointing at several wires and circuits with her tiny fingers. "You must follow me. I will show you the sequence. If you go wrong, the system will shut down." David swallowed hard. He had fixed power grids on human ships, but alien technology was a different matter. The patterns were strange, the symbols he could not read, the connections illogical. Yet somehow, watching Leary, he began to understand the rhythm. She moved like someone dancing with the ship, coaxing it awake with every gesture. "Now," she said softly, pointing to a cluster of wires. "Connect these 3. Then press this button. But not before I signal you." David nodded, hands trembling slightly. "Got it." Seconds later, she tapped him on the shoulder. "Now." He followed her instructions, heart pounding. The console flickered, then lit up with a soft blue glow. David exhaled, feeling a rush of triumph. "We did it," he said, almost in disbelief. "Yes," Leary said, smiling faintly. David laughed, a sound he had not realized he missed. It felt good to laugh, to succeed, to feel capable again. I think I needed you more than I knew," he admitted quietly. Leary's green eyes seemed to shine brighter. "And I needed you. You bring patience, creativity, something rare. Humans are clever. Even when they doubt themselves, they are clever." David felt a warmth in his chest he had not felt in years. He had spent so long alone, doubting his own worth, that he had almost forgotten how it felt to matter to someone else. And here was Leary, tiny as she was, showing him that he did. Hours passed. They moved through the ship together, repairing circuits, rerouting power, and slowly bringing the alien ship back to life. Leary seemed tireless, darting around with precision and focus, while David struggled to keep up. Yet despite his fatigue, he felt stronger than he had in days. Her presence gave him energy, a reason to push further. "You are amazing," David said at one point, leaning against a wall to catch his breath. "I don't know how a creature so small can do so much." Leary tilted her head. "I am small, yes. But small does not mean weak. And you, David, you are stronger than you think. You only doubt it." David shook his head slowly. "I don't know about that. I know I've failed before. I've made mistakes that cost people. I don't want to make more mistakes here." Leary crouched slightly and looked at him with those glowing green eyes. "Mistakes are only lessons. Humans forget that too often. You learn. You try again. That is strength." David nodded slowly. She was right, of course. He had spent so much of his life trying not to fail that he had forgotten the value of trying at all. Here, with Leary, he felt free to fail, free to learn, and free to grow. As they continued working, David began to notice other things about Leary. She was incredibly curious about human behavior, asking questions about how he learned things, why he made certain choices. Sometimes she would tilt her head and ask him to explain even the simplest actions, as if she were trying to understand the thought process behind them. "You press buttons," she said at one point. "But why do you press them in that order? Why not another?" David laughed softly. "Because it works. That's how I've always done it. Years of practice." "But practice is not the same as understanding," Leary said. "You understand more than you know. That is what I see." David found himself smiling. "You're strange, but in a good way." "I am Leary," she said simply, "and I am glad you think so." As the hours wore on, the ship seemed to come alive under their hands. Lights that had been dim and flickering now glowed steadily. Consoles that had been silent now hummed with soft energy. Even the corridors seemed less oppressive, as if the ship itself recognized their efforts and began to respond. David paused to look at Leary. She was perched on the edge of a console, small and delicate, yet radiating confidence and intelligence. "I don't know how to say this," he said softly, "but you're amazing. I've never met anyone like you. Anyone who can make me feel capable again." Leary tilted her head, a faint glow in her eyes. "You are capable, David. You only needed someone to remind you." He smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude deeper than words could describe. In all his years, he had never felt such a connection with anyone, and it amazed him that it came from someone so small, so alien, so unexpected. Just as he was about to speak again, the ship shuddered. A low vibration ran through the floor, and the lights flickered. David grabbed a console to steady himself. "What now?" he asked, alarmed. Leary's eyes narrowed slightly. "A system is reacting. Something." David's heart skipped a beat. "Waking? What do you mean?" "There are things on this ship," Leary said carefully. "Things that were put to sleep long ago. They are beginning to move." David's mind raced. He had read reports about alien ships with security systems, traps, and automated defenses. But this felt different. More alive. Almost like the ship itself had creatures within it. "What do we do?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "We continue," Leary said softly. "We work together. That is the only way." David nodded, swallowing hard. He had faced danger before, but never like this. The thought of unknown life forms inside the ship made his stomach twist. Yet despite the fear, he felt something else too. A spark of excitement. This was bigger than fixing circuits or rerouting power. This was something alive. Something that tested everything he knew. He looked at Leary, small and unafraid, and felt a surge of courage. "All right," he said. Let's finish this. Together. The little alien nodded, her eyes glowing brighter as she moved to the next console. Yes. Together. They worked in silence for a while, the sound of circuits humming and occasional clicks filling the air. David's mind was sharp now, his exhaustion forgotten. He watched Leary, learning from her movements, mimicking her careful gestures, and slowly, the alien ship began to respond. Lights flickered into steady glows, screens displayed energy readings he could understand, and a soft vibration ran through the floors. A signal that the ship's core was stabilizing. "This is incredible," David whispered, hardly believing it. "I've never seen a ship respond like this." Leary smiled faintly. "It listens. It knows we are not here to harm. It knows we work together." David paused, staring at her. Do you do this for everyone? Help strangers fix their ships?" Leary shook her head. "No. Not everyone. Only those who need it. Only those who can listen and learn. You are one of them." David felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had spent so long feeling small, powerless, insignificant. And now, this tiny alien girl was telling him he mattered, that he could make a difference, that he had value. The ship shuddered again, gently this time, as if acknowledging their success. David laughed softly, relief flooding him. I think we did it. For now. At least." Leary nodded, eyes glowing softly. "For now. But there is more to do. The ship, it has secrets. And we will find them." David took a deep breath, looking around the alien corridors that had once felt so cold and empty. They no longer seemed intimidating. They seemed alive, filled with possibility. And he realized, with a sense of awe, that meeting Leary had changed everything. She was small, yes, fragile. But she had reminded him of something he had forgotten. Humans could adapt, learn, and grow, even in the most impossible situations. And with her by his side, maybe, just maybe, they could unlock the secrets of this ship together. David Carlson had begun to feel more confident, working with Leary. Each repaired circuit, each console he understood, gave him a sense of purpose he had not felt in weeks. He was no longer just an exhausted engineer, lost on a strange alien ship. With Leary guiding him, he felt alive, alert, and, strangely, hopeful. But hope came with its own tension. The ship seemed restless, as if it had been sleeping for centuries and was now slowly waking. David could feel it in the vibrations under his feet, in the faint hum that now ran through the corridors. Even Leary seemed cautious, moving with more care, glancing around corners and corridors as if she were listening for something invisible. "David," she said softly, her green eyes focused ahead. "We are not alone. There is something here with us." David froze. Something? His hand instinctively moved to the tool belt at his side. Like what? Another alien? Security system? Leary shook her head. "Not exactly. It is part of this ship. It was put to sleep. But it is waking. It watches. It tests." David frowned, trying to imagine what that meant. He had seen many strange technologies and security measures in his career, but this felt different, more alive. He felt it, too, the subtle awareness of the ship itself. The lights flickered slightly, not in malfunction, but as if responding to their movements. "Tests?" he asked cautiously. "What kind of tests?" "Tests of skill," Leary said simply. "Of patience. Of courage. Of understanding." She paused, staring at a corridor ahead. "If you fail, the consequences are severe. But if you succeed, the ship will reveal its secrets." David took a deep breath. Secrets? He felt a spark of curiosity replace the fear. "What kind of secrets?" Quote, Leary's gaze was steady. I do not know all of them, but some are dangerous. Some are very dangerous. We must be careful. David nodded. He had faced danger before, but nothing like this. The unknown was always harder than the known, and the sense of a living ship watching their every move sent chills down his spine. But alongside the fear, he felt determination. He would not fail. Not when someone like Leary believed in him. They continued moving deeper into the ship. The corridors twisted and turned, with panels and machinery lining the walls. David noticed symbols he could not read, glowing faintly in colors he had never seen before. Leary moved beside him, small and nimble, pointing at symbols and switches that somehow made sense to her. This way, she said softly, pausing before a large metal door. The core is near. But we must be careful. This is where the first challenge begins. David studied the door. It was massive, reinforced with alien alloys, and etched with symbols that seemed to shift when he looked at them. He swallowed hard. Challenge? Yes, Leary said. The ship tests those who enter. It will not allow just anyone to reach the core. You must prove you are worthy. David's heart raced. And if I'm not? You will not pass, Leary said simply. But do not fear failure. You will learn, and then you may try again. David nodded, taking a deep breath. He placed his hand on the door panel, following Leary's instructions. Okay. Let's see what this ship wants from us. The panel lit up under their hands, symbols shifting and glowing in patterns that made David dizzy. He tried to follow the sequence Leary indicated, pressing buttons and sliding switches in precise order. Each mistake made the lights flash red. Each correct move brought a soft green glow. He could feel the ship responding to them, testing his concentration and understanding. Focus, Leary whispered. Do not rush. The ship notices impatience. Leary won. David nodded, heart pounding. He slowed his movements, concentrating on the rhythm of the lights and symbols. It was like a puzzle, one that required not just knowledge but intuition. He felt sweat dripping down his forehead, his hands trembling slightly, but Leary's calm presence gave him strength. Minutes passed like hours. The door panel flashed red once more, then green. David held his breath. Slowly, the massive door began to slide open, revealing a chamber beyond. The room was vast, filled with machinery that hummed with life. In the center was a glowing core, pulsing like a heartbeat. David stepped forward, awestruck. It's incredible, Leary nodded. This is the heart of the ship. It controls everything, and it will show us what we need to know if we are worthy. David approached the core, studying the patterns of energy that radiated from it. He could feel a strange pull, almost magnetic, as if the core were alive. His instincts told him to be careful, but curiosity overpowered fear. He reached out to touch a console near the core, following Leary's guidance. Suddenly, the room shifted. Panels moved. Lights changed, and a low hum filled the chamber. David felt the air thicken, as if the room itself were aware of his presence. He looked at Leary. Her small form was tense, her eyes glowing brighter than before. It begins, she said softly. The first test appeared before them. A holographic projection of an alien fleet. Hundreds of ships surrounding a planet. The ships moved with precision, firing beams and dodging attacks. Leary explained quickly. This is a simulation. The ship tests your mind, your strategy. You must find a way to protect the planet using only the resources here. David's eyes widened. A simulation? He had played war games before, but never like this. The fleet moved as if alive, responding to each move he made, and he could feel the weight of responsibility. This was not a game. It was a test of his ability to think, to adapt, to survive. Leary guided him, pointing out weak points in the simulation, suggesting strategies. "Use the energy flow here," she said, "and reroute power to this console. The ship will respond." David followed her instructions, moving quickly but carefully. The holographic ships reacted, changing formation, slowing attacks, and creating openings. Slowly, he realized he could control the outcome, if only he paid attention and trusted his instincts. Hours passed. David made mistakes, corrected them, learned from each one. Leary remained patient, offering guidance but never taking control. She wanted him to succeed on his own, and he did. Slowly, the simulation shifted. The alien fleet retreated, leaving the planet unharmed. David exhaled, sweat running down his face. "Yes," Leary said softly. "You did it. The ship sees your courage and intelligence. You are worthy." David felt a surge of pride. For the first time in days, he felt truly capable. He had faced a challenge far beyond anything he had imagined, and he had succeeded. And he knew it was not just his own skill. Leary had been there, guiding him, believing in him when he doubted himself. But before he could celebrate, the room shifted again. The holographic simulation disappeared, replaced by another vision. This time, of a planet under attack. The images were sharper, more real, and David felt a chill. Leary's voice was calm, but there was tension beneath it. "This is not a simulation," she said quietly. "This is a warning. The ship shows us what is coming. There is a danger approaching. Something that may threaten many worlds." David's heart raced. "A real attack?" "Yes," Leary said, "and we must be ready. The ship tests us to prepare us. It knows you will face choices soon, decisions that may cost lives. You must be ready." "None." David swallowed hard. He had faced danger before, but this felt different. It was larger, more real, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. He glanced at Leary, small and determined beside him, and felt a mix of fear and determination. "We'll be ready," he said finally. "We have to be. I won't let anyone die if I can help it." Leary nodded. "The ship believes in you, David. And so do I. But you must trust yourself, your mind, your heart, your choices. That is the true test." David took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. The exhaustion that had haunted him for days seemed distant now, replaced by focus and determination. He looked at the core of the ship, pulsing softly, and understood that this was only the beginning. The real challenge was ahead, and he would face it, guided by Leary, and by his own human ingenuity. For the first time since he arrived on this alien ship, David felt a sense of purpose stronger than fear. He was not just fixing circuits or consoles anymore. He was learning, growing, preparing, and he knew that whatever danger lay ahead, he would face it. Because he was human. And humans, he realized, were capable of more than even they believed. Leary watched him quietly, her small form glowing softly in the light of the core. "You are ready," she said. "The next steps will test you more. But you are ready, David. I can feel it." David nodded, determination burning in his chest. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew he would face it with courage, and with Leary by his side, he would not face it alone. The ship hummed around them, alive and watching. David felt it too, not as a threat, but as a challenge, and he accepted it. Together, human and alien, engineer and guide, they prepared to face the unknown. And somewhere deep in him, David knew that this moment, this partnership, would change everything.